Greetings and welcome back to Switch to Linux. We are here again with Sean O'Brien. He's going to be talking us with some security stuff. So go ahead and say something so I can double check our audio levels are not balanced right.
Hi, everybody. How you doing?
All right. Well, it looks like our audio levels are actually not too bad. You might be a little louder than me. Let me just do a slight tweak. I really
Okay.
need need to do soundboard. I wanted to do one last month, but my budget was just too slow, or too low, so could not pull one in. But anyway, all right. So we're going to talk about some encryption-y stuff. Before we started, though, we're talking like website stuff. You're using WordPress on your one site, right?
I am,
And,
yeah.
and,
I've used
and yeah.
Drupal plenty too. So,
Yeah. And of
yep.
course, that fun Gutenberg we're talking about, that's going to Drupal next. In the next version of Drupal, it'll be there.
Great.
So we have only one version of an open source CMS that does not have Gutenberg garbage crammed into it, and that's Joomla. So yeah, I was up till 4:30 in the morning working on some Joomla stuff. Um, so trying to get a list to expand. So I'm going to have to use a PHP explosion. Don't worry, there's no bad people involved. It's just a function in PHP. Hopefully I can cause it to work, but I don't know. We'll see. I'll let you guys an update. But the new channel that I launched, which is on writing and authorship stuff, is actually going to be based on Joomla instead of WordPress because I hate Gutenberg. So, how you doing, man?
Good, good. It's a nice Saturday here. It's actually pretty warm out, so a little bit of summer here.
Yeah, we were pretty hot. Was it 2 days ago? Yesterday was a little cooler. Last night it was 34.
Yeah, weird, right?
Yeah, go figure. So,
Well,
but it is October, so I won't begrudge 34. But about 4:30 in the morning when I went to go to bed, I was like, it's that cold, so I brought my grapefruit tree inside because I don't want my grapefruit tree to freeze. That would not be good.
yeah. I've got
All right.
lemon and limes I got to bring in, so good reminder,
Oh,
man.
yeah, yeah. There you go. There you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I could probably survive. I mean, they can survive a little bit of a frost, but I like that tree too much. It's the only plant I have. I don't care if it does. If it doesn't die. All right, we got DJ Wares on. Greetings, Simply Linux. Hello to you. Keegan is finishing up his homework, routing and switching homework. Very cool. Very cool. So Keegan's a student in some networky stuff. We got 14 waiting. One says hello. We got 21 on right now. So hello, everybody. Let's see. Gonna grab a coffee. Grab mine. My amazing Switch Links mug. Ooh. Let's see. They're saying audio sounds good. Yeah, I'm moving this closer. I don't like to do it for some of the live shows, but for the interview type ones where I have to balance audio, moving the mic closer works. All right. I just need to get a cooler little mic stand too, right? Drew is on. Greetings. Mark Bortney, hello. All right. So I guess that's all of our introductions. So if you are in the feed, go ahead and ask questions of either one of us. Sean knows infinitely more about security than I do. That's why I stopped covering security on my news because I'm sick of saying, "This is some fun security things you should be aware of," but I have no idea what's going on. So, but today we're talking about encryption, right? Um, so is there anything you want to start out with? Any articles or anything like that you want to start out with? Actually, if you want to email me anything, I can probably open up a email browser over here. Let's see. I do have my Nextcloud integrated with my email, and Nextcloud does not do email well. I gotta say that. Okay. So what's first on your end? I have a couple articles myself, but I thought we'd start with you.
Sure. I mean, do you want to run into the Facebook stuff? That's the big news of the week, right?
Sure, let's do it. So on my end, Jeff handed me this. Oh man, my layout for this does not look as good as it should. Let me fix my layout over here. You can go ahead and start talking about it. I'm just going to fix the web layout. So Jeff Hope sent me this article from Fossbytes, which
Very
on
nice.
Fossbytes, US and UK, I will note that those are the two of the biggest companies in the Five Eyes. They asked Facebook to create a backdoor to access encrypted texts. So Facebook company at large, that means WhatsApp would be no longer secure from government intrusion, nor is the Messenger. And if there is anything like that on Instagram, which I haven't used Instagram, so I don't know. I did use WhatsApp for about, I think it was 7 or 8 days. And there was a reason for that. I had a friend, the teenager that I mentor. He actually went to a trip through Europe, and the school set everybody up with a WhatsApp account so they could communicate with friends and family. And so we used WhatsApp, and then as soon as he landed the plane, he deleted it before he even got off the plane because he doesn't want to do anything with that crap either. So,
Yeah, I mean,
all
the
right.
thing about WhatsApp is the presence of it is huge in other parts of the world. I still don't quite understand why it caught on so much on
Yeah.
other continents.
Well,
But
I don't know. I'm wondering, is it just that it's that first one of the apps like it that worked so well? Could that just be it? Because Signal's
so my
similar too.
understanding is it used to just be a Jabber client though, XMPP.
Oh,
So
really?
that's
Okay.
yeah. So maybe I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty certain that it was just an XMPP client to start. So it's kind of like, well, maybe it worked well, right? Maybe you're right, it worked well, but it didn't
Hmm.
have double ratchet encryption or anything to start.
Yes.
So yeah,
And
but
how?
yeah,
When did that get added in? Do you know?
at least 5 years ago. Because one of the things that started to happen was so we do workshops primarily in on the Yale campus here, but also elsewhere in New Haven. And I do workshops anywhere where people will have me. So I've been doing that for a really long time, and well, it feels like a really long time. But anyway, 5 or 6 years ago, the only thing out there was WhatsApp that did double ratchet encryption well that the average person could install. Right.
Hmm.
And then obviously Signal grew in popularity, but it was very hard getting around, people recommending WhatsApp. And you had a lot of folks who even, are privacy minded folks just recommending it to people.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, like I have a friend from high school that moved to France, and so he's a little bit. I think he's like 60 miles or so above Paris, and they're like they hate Facebook, but they're like, oh yeah, we're on WhatsApp, all these kind of things. I'm like, that's owned by Facebook. What? It's like how many people actually know WhatsApp is owned by Facebook? What do you have an idea as to that?
yeah, so I don't have numbers in front of me, but I know there have been polls about this done by, business press, both WhatsApp and Instagram as well. There's not a
Hmm.
popular perception that they're owned by Facebook.
Yeah.
So when they had the whole delete Facebook thing really, in full swing last year, there were a lot of people switching to Instagram. It's like,
Yeah.
so it is what it is. But I mean,
Yeah.
it goes to show how fragmented the information
Hmm.
is out there.
Yeah. Now,
And I don't know if you've seen. There's this thing. Where I just want to talk about this. There's this new brand that Facebook is pushing, and it's like it's webcams and speakers and television, right? And I'm trying to think
the
of the name.
portal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And when you watch the advertisements, they don't tell you until the very end that it's a Facebook company.
Hmm.
So I think there's a reason for that.
Hmm.
So.
Now, they're not as hidden. There's things like I live in the web design world, of course, and there's a company out there that nobody has heard of. See if you've heard of it, Endurance International Group. Any knowledge of them?
No.
Okay, so Endurance International Group is a giant conglomerate that buy up all of the fast and growing web hosting companies. So there is a portfolio now that's like 70 web hosting companies that are all owned by the same group. And what they'll do is they'll grab up really good web hosting companies and then they'll throw them under their portfolio, lay off the entire staff, outsource the support, and then overcrowd the servers. And so they're basically building on these. But when they buy up a company, there's no press releases. Nobody is aware of it. It's very difficult to figure it out. So some people is actually their hobby to keep up on all the companies that they're buying, looking at the little tiny required legal notices that are never press releases. So that's why, like, when I started in website stuff about 15 years ago, I was on Bluehost, yeah, out of Provo, Utah, which was an amazingly good company. And then all of a sudden, it's like, man, these guys starting to suck all of a sudden. So I'm looking around, like,
Yeah.
jumped to HostGator. And then HostGator was totally awesome. And then, man, they just started to suck. I'm like, what is going on? Well, I did some digging into it and I found this company, Endurance International Group, is buying up these companies. And so anytime somebody's like, oh, check out this hosting company, I always do a search to figure out, is this a company owned by Endurance International Group? Because this group, they upsell literally, like, it's not as bad as GoDaddy old upsell, even current upsell, But this is the only company that does not have free SSL capabilities on their hosting platforms in 2019. It's like, let's encrypt. But no, they
It's
won't
kind of
support it.
ridiculous.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
won't support it because they want to upsell the sales of the SSL. They want to upsell the installation fee. They want to, it's insane. And so you got to watch if you're buying a hosting space. Make sure that it is not owned by Encryption International Group. Now they keep things secret. Facebook doesn't necessarily keep it secret. They're just not all in your face about it. I think that's to bring us back to where we started.
Well, they're also cognizant of the fear amongst privacy advocates of them owning so much, right? So the big thing that people always said was, well, it's going to be a bad day when Facebook integrates WhatsApp with its own Facebook Messenger, when it integrates Instagram messaging with Facebook Messenger, right?
Yeah.
And now we know those two things are happening. The clever bit is that Zuckerberg did it in the name of privacy, right? Which sort of quiets some folks because they're going to use encryption. But we'll see what happens now, right? So I guess we should summarize the news. I don't know if we did that at the top here, but the UK and the US have a treaty now, and they are asking Facebook to not have encryption on any of its messaging, or at the very least, give them backdoor keys, which I think would actually be more ideal for governments than blatantly letting people know that they they can see in. Right.
Still bad, I would probably argue, but because
it may be worse.
Once a backdoor encryption key's out there, how long do you estimate it's going to be before you can buy that thing on the black market? Would you give it a day or just an hour?
I mean, it'll happen, right? And the bottom line too is centralization of this data in one place is already bad enough. Right. The fact that Facebook has all of this content, but we know that the NSA, for example, has a huge data center where they want to gobble up everything that goes through the pipe, all of the internet. Right. And if they're able to store all of this content in places like that, or more places, right, you've now got mirrored databases in the UK. You've got those database, huge data centers all over the US. You might have data sharing agreements between them and the other Five Eyes agencies, right? Australia, New Zealand, as well, and Canada as well. So, doing that is just going to increase the attack surface. It's pretty obvious to me that even if you trusted that it was okay for the U.S. government to eavesdrop on all these communications in the moment, it's the storage over time that's going to be problematic.
Yeah, and that's what Snowden refers to as the turnkey government, right? So while having this data may not be bad right now, well, I mean, if you're like on some political parties, you think it's downright terrifying. If you're on other political parties, you think it's just okay. But what happens when the parties reverse? Then how the people that were not terrified are not terrified, because we are in this divided country, which is crazy. Right. But the fact is, when things change, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what color person gets in the office. Anybody can become a tyrant with the data. And if you go back to early encryption, if I remember my history correctly, and you will be able to fill in the gaps here, I believe that encryption used to actually be pretty much globally illegal, right? And
yeah, so there were export control laws in the U.S. that were very strong, with good both symmetric and especially though asymmetric key encryption. And I can sort of just talk about the difference between those two really quickly, because I think going from there and then talking about backdoors and why backdoors are a bad thing, would be kind of a good segue. So with symmetric key encryption, right, you have information that can be decrypted and encrypted with the same key. So you've got a cipher of some kind, you've got some information of some kind, and let's say you're scrambling it, but you're scrambling each letter of the alphabet by, a different amount. So I moved the letter A 5 places, I moved the letter B, 20 places, et cetera, right? Knowing what those places are for scrambling the message, that's symmetric, and it's very basic. And this is like the stuff they've been doing since really the beginning of writing and the beginning of warfare, definitely, right? Yeah. But that works, and it works pretty well until you have computers crunching numbers, right? And for a very long time, symmetric key was the thing. Um, Asymmetric key encryption became a problem for export control for the United States government because its very design is that you want to share one key and hold one key of your own. So the key that you use for symmetric encryption does the decryption and the encryption, right? And if that key gets out, then the messages obviously can be known. But if you have a public key that you advertise, which is kind of like the key to send you a letter, you send that to everybody and you say, communicate with this key, communicate with me with this key. Then you hold on to your private key and you do your decryption here, right, locally. And that's a really, really powerful thing. It became problematic, of course, because all of a sudden, if you're a part of the intelligence community, if you're if you have incentive to be eavesdropping on people, especially, but also if you're writing technology that you want to be, the U.S. government has an interest in technical business secrets as well, right? They don't necessarily want companies in the U.S., so-called colluding with companies elsewhere, and then, they can't see what's going on. That non-transparency scared the crap out of them. Because now you're holding on to your private key, you're sticking it in a safety deposit box, so to speak, and then you're shipping out your public key, and people can just transparently communicate with you in an encrypted way. So it's a powerful, powerful thing. But yeah, the big famous case, of course, was Phil Zimmerman. He was in a huge amount of trouble for PGP. And once PGP got out and started becoming used a lot on the internet, then it became impossible for the U.S. government to really ban that type of encryption. Now, there were some very good lawyers on that and some good people advocating for, public-private key encryption. So, I won't say it just magically happened because the U.S. came to their senses. But, it happened. And one of the reasons it happened is because banks and, businesses in general, corporations, large and small, wanted to do transactions over the internet, secure transactions. So that tension's still there, right? The whole thing about backdoors that's really interesting and also going to be problematic if we do actually end up with backdoors in these technologies, or even worse, having certain types of encryption being made illegal, is that it's going to discourage the ability for commerce to happen at all, right? Australia's looking at this. It's like businesses don't want to go to Australia now because they may have to stop using the safeguards that allow people to do transactions with them over the internet. So anyway,
onto that, like some people are saying it is already illegal to have encryption in Australia. Is that true or partially true? What's the take on that?
Yeah, so on paper it probably is, but usually when these regulations come through, right, there needs to be some sort of precedent. So until people start getting actually, rounded up, or we see cases that really illustrate the illegalness of the technology, we'll see what goes on.
So for example, like I have a dedicated computer that just does banking. And obviously that one there has passwords for all my banking accounts. I do not touch anything banking except on that one device, which is on a little flash drive. And needless to say, that is encrypted. So would that be illegal to have that little personal drive with my banking passwords encrypted? Would that be illegal to take into Australia? That's kind of what I'm getting at. Is the home user is the home user going to get in trouble for encrypting their computer to keep burglars from having their personal files?
Yeah, so my understanding is under the Australian law, yes, that would be illegal. By the way, really good security practice.
Yeah. Now, there's been high-profile cases. I mentioned this before, but there is one in. There's a guy in Baltimore that last I knew, he is still locked up in jail and will be perpetually. He has not been charged with a crime. He is suspected of having some bad stuff on his hard drive, and he will not decrypt his hard drive. which is
Yep.
already a precedent. Now, if you take that guy's side and say we got to stand for strong encryption, now you find yourself standing next to an accused pedophile. So,
Yeah.
how do we
Right.
fight these types of cases? Saying, yeah, while that guy is potentially doing something bad, but we don't know because we can't see what he's doing, versus I just want to keep my banking stuff safe, not just when I'm online, but in the case somebody breaks into my house and steals the thing.
Right. So first, I just want to clarify for the audience too, because there are differences in the laws and the practice that you can do to lock up your stuff. So in Britain, for example, you can be compelled to give over not only passwords, right, but also biometric information as well. So basically, they say you have to unlock it on an order. Period.
Yeah.
In the United States, that's
Now,
not
do you have to unlock it or do you have to give them the means to unlock it? I think there's a distinction. Like I could go and say,
Yeah,
all right, I'm going
there's
to
a slight distinction.
unlock it for you. Or do you have to say, this is my password to unlock it?
Yeah, so you had to give them the means. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
But I mean, in some cases with biometrics, having them scan your face and then they have, some hashing algorithm of your face and that kind of thing. So there's getting to be a finer line between those two things, right? As some of these
Sure.
Technologies come through. But anyway, in the US, right, the recommendation is actually that you don't use a passcode, the recommendation for most advocates, because then you can be compelled to basically give that up because it's speech, right? And some of these other forms of identification, of being able to unlock the device, you cannot be compelled to. So, I've also seen the opposite. So I just want people to be aware. My feeling on a lot of these is that using something that's a little in the middle, like a pattern code on your phone, is a good idea.
Okay.
But anyway, so locking up your devices, just be careful about the method you use. If you use a 4-digit passcode or something like that, you may be pretty easily compelled to give that up.
Sure. Now,
Depending on where you are, etc. Yep.
Now, in theory, though, the general legal thought is that you could be compelled to give biometric data to unlock a phone, but you could not necessarily legally be compelled to give a passkey to unlock it. Now, there's distinctions being drawn, but
right.
In theory, in the United States, that's what it should be. Because
yes,
one of those
for
is
example,
encryption, and the other of those is biometric, which is not protected by privacy laws.
Right. And for example, it depends. So it gets complex, but it depends on the method that the police use to collect it. So when there were large protests in 2008 in New York, and then throughout 2012, et cetera, they were just doing iris scanning of anybody that they booked and arrested. And you had no choice for them to do that. That information can be used, of course, to unlock your phone if you use biometric methods, right? I don't like biometric methods anyway. There's a lot of reasons for us not to be using those. And I would actually never. This is where it gets complicated. In most cases, I would not recommend using them. For some threat models, for some situations that you're in, it may make sense, right? But the issue with that is you're probably using technology that big tech is sticking in some, sticking the information in some giant database, and they will have that data forever, or as long as they exist, and can sell it off to someone.
So you use the same phone I do, which is the Nexus 5X. Do you use your fingerprint scanner on that or not?
No, definitely not. I run Lineage OS on the thing. Yeah, of course not. I run Lineage on the thing, and I may switch. We'll see. There's some other ROMs that are out that are pretty good now, and I use a actual pattern. That's a problem if you have greasy hands, or you just leave a mark on the screen. So that's another one. I find myself constantly wiping my screen, after I eat pizza or something. So,
yeah, there you go. Oh, pizza loving nerds in here. Pizza, you just got eaten, man. All right. I use a 4-digit PIN, but I also don't use my phone for anything that's important. Literally, my phone is to make phone calls and text messages, and those get cleared out regularly anyway. So, and I actually just use that because I have this weird philosophy. Like if I'm with people, a lot of people I hang out with know my passcode because, the worst thing we want to have is we're on a hike or something when one of us falls over and dies or whatever, and one of the cell phone doesn't work, and we got a cell phone, but with no way to unlock it.
Yeah, sure.
But I think that's kind of where you at. All right. Anything else on that general topic?
Yeah, so there's a question in here about Facebook. I'm looking for others that actually mention
Yeah.
Facebook.
Will
So
Facebook ban? Will
yeah,
Facebook
you
ban
got it.
if we encrypt the messages ourselves?
I don't see how they possibly could, but I also don't see why that would be a useful thing. I do know that there are plugins or add-ons for Firefox and whatever they call them, extensions for
Hmm.
Chrome and Chromium, that allow you to use PGP/GPG, whatever you want to call it, to encrypt messages and then paste them into your email.
Hmm.
And there's also some newer plugins that work directly with some of the web services. So if you do use Gmail or one of those, you can
Hmm.
encrypt the content pretty easily.
Okay.
It's possible somebody can write an extension like that. I guess that would be really useful, actually. The
Hmm.
problem is it's keeping people in Facebook, which is another whole ecosystem thing that we really need to think about getting away from.
Yeah, no,
So,
I had a video just the other day because I was testing out this MeWe, which is kind of like in theory, a privacy focused Facebook type clone. But now it's like they're just brand new, nobody's heard of them, and they want to charge me to have a page. I'm like, I don't really find it worth that, unfortunately. Have you heard of MeWe? Any comments on those?
no, I have not. I always, and it's probably no surprise, I'm a big free open source software guy.
Hmm.
Mastodon's been what I've been using primarily. I've
Yep.
just started to get into minds.com as well,
Hmm.
which is also open source, and it has sort of this boosting thing
Yep.
that's tied to Ethereum. That's
Yep.
interesting. Um, but yeah, I mean, so I used to, full disclosure here, I used to run a federated social networking node, relatively large server. We had thousands of users. And after a while of being the admin of one of these, it's not that you give up on privacy, but you start understanding that there's not a good way on those platforms to communicate to users whether a message is actually truly private, even if you do put in some sort of encrypted messaging piece.
Hmm.
Just a very hard thing to communicate. Even if you try to put in the UI, it's just confusing to folks. They don't know when a message is public. They don't know when a message is only seen by them and their friends. And what you see with Facebook, of course, which actually gives you fine-grained permissions. Now, Facebook can see everything, but
Yeah.
and they do, of course, right, with extreme complexity. But what you actually find is users don't even use the anything but the defaults because it gets too complicated. So I am a little skeptical of private social media for that reason. I kind of feel like direct messages or things that are best kept private should be on other platforms,
Hmm.
and there just kind of needs to be an understanding that when we put things on social media, it's just like putting things on the web,
Yeah.
right? So
So,
anyway.
actually, Carl here has a question I was just going to ask. Is Signal secure enough?
Yeah, so Signal is great. I have some issues with Signal personally, and also just from both from a use case, right? Recommending it to folks and certain threat models where they may be in danger, and also sort of a philosophical the way the software is delivered. I have some issues with it. On the first piece, Signal, it's great. It took off hugely the same way WhatsApp did, primarily because it was using the phone system, which is a really easy way to have a directory of users without having to keep track of a directory of users, right?
Hmm.
Um, so the hard part of doing a lot of these double ratchet encryption, end-to-end encrypted chat technologies is figuring out how you're going to have discoverability of the users. And unless you can come up with something clever, which, for example, Wire has come up with something very clever for this, but you still can't get away from the problem of being in charge of all this database of other users, which is
Hmm.
So what Signal does is they use the phone system, but the phone system is extremely private and extremely identifiable for most folks, unless you're purposefully using a burner phone, right? So that makes Signal problematic to start. There's no reason to think that there are any issues with Signal's encryption. That there's a lot of very smart folks that are looking at them with extreme scrutiny all the time. However, they don't publish all of the source code for the server-side implementation. So there is always the question of, I would think that it's more likely that there's some kind of bug that could be problematic on the back end because it doesn't have enough eyeballs on the source code, on the code base, than there to be a backdoor. But hypothetically, there could be one. Unless you have full disclosure of the source code, you technically don't know. That's the first one. And then the second thing is the primary delivery mechanisms for Signal are Google Play and Apple, the App Store. And
that is what irritates me the most. It's like you can
Right.
get the APK and manually sideload it, but they make it very hard to do, and you can't get on an F-Droid.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of people in the community have, so I'm not unique in this way, but I've had very long discussions with Moxie Marlin Spike about this, and he's been kind enough to continue the conversation. But the feeling that he has expressed to me is that they want to be able to control the distribution completely. And they want to be able to make sure they can continue the promise of pushing updates very easily through Google Cloud Messaging and whatever the Apple equivalent of that is. So the feeling is, well, we can't put this in F-Droid because we're introducing another player in our software supply chain, basically. I disagree about that, but it is what it is.
I disagree as well because I sideloaded the APK and the stupid thing wants to update itself automatically all the time. And I do not like things that automatically update, but I've allowed it, which is the only thing I've allowed to automatically update. But yeah, it'll update itself just fine in that situation. So I don't know why it would be an issue on F-Droid, but I don't know.
Well, I guess it removes the ability for the Open Whisper systems devs to be the primary point of contact that's doing all that. Sure. And it means that you have to go through a process with the F-Droid folks, who also are extremely responsive and awesome and everything else. Yeah. So, but it is what it is. I could go into it more and more, but I think there's also just fundamental philosophical differences between Open Whisper Systems approach and real, true free software. They don't want to have federated servers either, so you can't set up your own server to talk to the Signal client, and that'll never happen. That's something they put a hard line in the sand on. So anyway, for the average person, it's fine. I also recommend Wire, which I like very much. Wire does publish their server-side implementation. It is a pain to set up on your own, but hypothetically, you can have your own Wire server. I'm not aware of anybody doing that outside of corporate environments yet, but you could do it. They also are not yet in the F-Droid store, and I think that's because of some minor licensing issues with some of their code base. So I don't think that's beyond the realm of possibility. Yeah. I just think it hasn't happened yet. So
yeah, and I guess one of the points we should mention for the people more curious about F-Droid, to my understanding, F-Droid actually personally audits the code and compiles everything themselves.
They go above and beyond that too. So Yale Privacy Lab, which is the group that I founded at Yale in 2017 and still do research with, they take tracker signatures from us and also Exodus Privacy, which actually does the heavy lifting. We send some stuff upstream to Exodus Privacy, which is a group out of France, incredible group of people. And then that ends up in F-Droid. So they also have third-party groups who are willing to communicate with them and just check for trackers.
Yeah.
So not only do you know that the stuff has been compiled by hand and they know exactly what's in it, but they're running these automated or semi-automated tests against the code base too to make sure that there's no trackers in the thing. And as we find new trackers, we just add them to the list, which is huge.
Which is why
Yeah.
F-Droid is still the best place to get stuff from rather than the Google Play Store, which seems to have vulnerabilities every week. you know.
Right.
Oh boy.
Right. And it goes back to that old, free software thing. Imagine if you had a ton of money in F-Droid, they were getting tons of donations, and then they had a huge team and everything else. It would just be exceptional. It already has quite a bit of code, and, the number of apps is huge now. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
So I had this question. I didn't know where to put it in, but it was a very good early question. How long before quantum computing breaks all standard encryption?
yeah, I'm ready for this one. It always comes up. So, it's good to explain a little bit without going into detail why quantum computing is a threat. So I'll try to be relatively quick on that. But basically, when you're doing asymmetric key encryption, you have a base, an exponent, right? Some power that you're bringing that base up to, so 3 to the power of 11 or whatever, and then you have a modulus, which is what you're dividing the thing by. And what this basically does is it does a one-way function where finding the modulus is more difficult than figuring out the rest of the information. So all the information needs to come together to decrypt the message, but part of that, and this is a extreme simplification, but part of that mathematical equation is easier to figure out than the other part. So the hard part is what you hold on to as your private key, basically, and the easier part to figure out is what you hand over as your public key, so that people can encrypt, and then you can only decrypt using this private key. Okay, so that's all factorization stuff. It's all well-known math. It also has to do with something called Fourier transforms when it's calculated and so on. But long story short, in a quantum world, right, there's something called Shor's algorithm, where basically this algorithm allows you, if you're doing normal computation, it's possible to still, break this encryption, but it's really, really hard. What you're trying to do is you're trying to have a bad guess for a factor of the number. And then each time you make another guess, you're trying to iteratively make that guess better. But with quantum encryption, you can basically lay everything out on the table, and you get one output that has an extreme likelihood of being the correct answer. Okay, so basically all the other possibilities cancel out. That's the way that you arrange the math. I know that sounds weird, but you set up the equation so that all the other possibilities cancel out, and there's only one possibility that pops out, basically. That's the theoretical basis. So when quantum computing is figured out, or if it's ever figured out to the level that it's useful in this way, it'll be extremely useful and it'll break everything. So that's why there's a fear of it. Now, the folks that I've talked to who are working in this space at MIT and elsewhere are skeptical. Not all of them. Some of them are very gung-ho about it, but some of them are very skeptical about the quantum computing being like a practical implementation anytime soon. But they're making progress. So it's tough to say. I don't have faith that it's going to happen anytime soon. And I also think it's going to be extremely difficult to write software for a quantum computer. So I think some sort of hybrid approach is probably going to be needed to actually make the machines useful. We already have a lot of difficulty writing, for example, asynchronous memory, right, in a kernel. So when we're doing like a microkernel, it's really, really difficult. And so if humans have problems with those more traditional problems with traditional software, I think it's going to be more difficult in quantum computing to figure that stuff out. So I don't know. We could put a timer on it, but I don't think it's going to be soon. Now, the thing you can do, of course, is you can use keys that you throw out for each conversation, and that's the best way to quote unquote beat quantum decryption if it comes down the road. And so, for example,
that would be kind of like
yep.
the services where you can get like a one-time use credit card number attached to your card, right? So you use it once and then it's done.
That's kind of the idea, right?
Okay.
But basically what you do is you and I would have a conversation, right? We would do it using public and private keys, right? I give you my public key, right? And I use your public key to write the message, sorry, and you use my public key to write the message to me. We set up that conversation. Once we have that band set up, then we use symmetric encryption in that band, so in-band encryption of another type with new keys, and then after the conversation is over, you throw those out. So there's something called perfect forward secrecy that you can actually set up with SSL TLS, for example, that will do this and do this automatically. So if you have a site set up to do that, then hypothetically, unless there's some kind of issue with the implementation, it's not going to matter whether in the future somebody has all of that encrypted data because the keys just don't exist anymore. You will know that Tom and I talked, but you won't know what Tom and I talked about, right?
Yeah. So that's the whole metadata versus actual data stuff.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
So Drew says when private citizens don't have the ability to use encryption, they are no longer private citizens.
No, it's true.
Yeah. The fact that encryption being illegal is even being considered disgusts me. I would try to abandon Australia. Right.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to still have to use this technology no matter what. And I don't think, again, because powerful people are using this and they're using this a lot. And don't forget that encryption is still at the basis of cryptocurrencies. I know there's some fracturing between the information security folks and the cryptocurrency folks generally, but when big banks are thinking about doing this stuff and actually using cryptocurrencies, as part of their portfolio, right, and potentially as becoming payment processors, you can't just outlaw the underlying math behind it, which is why I think this Facebook trade deal, this trade deal that involves Facebook, I should say, between the UK and the US, it's specifically targeting, one vendor. And it may target the other big vendors, all of the big tech guys, and say, fall into line and do this. That seems more likely. And then we're going to be back to the same problem we already have, which is, what do we do about the Google and the Facebook and the Apple and the Microsoft communication that we can't trust? So we'll have to use other things. That's what I think will be the likelihood. But yeah, I mean, they could put it on the books illegal and then, lock away someone and throw away the key when they don't like them, whistleblowers, etc.
Yeah.
So,
and that happens. Unfortunately, that happens too much now. Like, we have such weird laws right now. If they wanted to lock you away, they could find a way. We noticed on our security surveillance that you have expectorated on the public sidewalk 6 times last week. We're going to send you to jail as a public nuisance for a while.
Right.
Which is illegal to spit on the sidewalk in many jurisdictions.
Sure. I've been pulled over, by police for things, and they don't really have a reason. They just are wondering why you're in their area, if you travel by car and you go on long road trips, et cetera, et cetera. And, for example, in one case, I got a ticket because they said that the frame around my license plate was slightly obscuring the word Connecticut, which is the state I'm from, and in, and therefore that was illegal. And it's like, that police have all that stuff in the backlog. They have all this stuff that they can potentially, give you a ticket for. Right. Yeah. Whether we start automating that stuff in the same way China does in places like Shenzhen, I hope we don't get there, but it may start happening. The whole social credit score thing terrifies me.
Yeah. And it's getting here too in many cases. In fact, I have a video about that general topic coming up sometime soon. Here's a question relating this service, which I've never seen before, Box Cryptor. So he says, do you know something like Box Cryptor but open source? So my guess is it looks like this is something that you can just encrypt your files before sending it. And I believe your company does this, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, so I mean, if you encrypt your stuff, whatever algorithm you use, you can just do that with open source tools now. Yeah. It takes a longer time for large binary files, but that's still true with these other tools. These other tools are the ones that are going to be using this stuff. Yeah. Anyway, Box Cryptor, I believe that the tool that is the counterpart that's got a good license, and I'm just going to triple check right now the license, is Cryptomator, Crypto Mator. And I believe they have a very good open source license. I think it's GPL v3 actually. Um,
Hmm,
so anyway,
that would be this one.
yeah,
This one there, I think.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
But
So
anyway,
yeah,
at the cost
go
of
ahead.
doing a shameless plug, you should check out Privacy Safe, which is a device we're working on. We're trying to specifically tie our software to the hardware, and we're doing that because it seems to us to make sense for the storage and correct handling of private keys for the threat modeling and for the that we're targeting, and for the use cases that we're going after. That having those keys on a device that you control that's separate from your laptop, that's separate from your mobile phone,
Mm-hmm.
makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
And then we're
So.
also going to be doing a service fee for that as
Mhm.
well. So,
So I just dropped
yep,
the links for both CryptoMator and the Privacy Safe there in the chat, so you can check those out. So it looks like CryptoMator is already available. Yours is still in pre-order, right? So
that's right,
need a
right. But we're
solution right
working,
now?
man.
Go to CryptoMator, right? All right.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see what else we got in the chat feed here. Hey, Joe's on. How's it going, Joe? Okay. Let's see. Looks like Joe probably joined a while ago. I remember it was a long time back. Hello, Joe. Zulu Crypt. Are you familiar with Zulu Crypt?
I think I might have heard of it
Okay.
because it does sound familiar, but I'm not familiar with it now. Somebody said, is OpenPGP deprecated? So we definitely have GPG libraries. GNU PG obviously is used constantly. It's possible the original OpenPGP library is deprecated, but um, I don't know. That's a good question. I only use free and open source software implementations of this stuff, and that's updated all the time. It's possible there are PGP libraries, including the quote unquote original one, um, that are deprecated. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll try to figure that out. That's good to know.
Okay.
Um,
So crypto. So here's. I'm gonna try and formulate a question I have based upon disappointment. He says, unpopular conspiracy. They want digital currency to freeze your accounts at any time. So, and I've talked about this on my channel before. Where a lot of the big push for pushing everybody into these auto payment and stuff, which is the traditional banking, credit cards and stuff. A lot of it's let's get rid of real cash so we can exclude you from society if we don't like you or if you engage in wrong think or whatever. So how much do you think cryptocurrency is going to produce an underbelly that will allow people to still engage in commerce when these central overlords have cast us out?
yeah, so it's a tough question. I'm not an expert in fiat currencies either, and there are some folks I'm sure who will disagree with me. But yeah, I mean, digital turning you everything that you own into a digital form, or everything that gives you value in our society, which is unfortunately your money, your actual liquid assets, especially. You doing that is really dangerous. Hypothetically, there is no reason that storing your own cryptocurrencies locally, right? Either using a local wallet, something like Electrum and the Lightning Network, or using a device like Privacy Safe. Again, I guess it's bubbling back up with the topic, but you can implement not only payment processors where you can accept, so you can receive payments. With Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies without having to go through a third party processor. But you can also keep your own wallet, right?
Mm,
Having stuff in cold storage takes some discipline and some real, serious thought. But it's actually not that complicated than what you were talking about, Tom, with the way that you have sort of just an isolated computer for your
mm,
banking. It just takes that kind of preparation. So yeah, do they want to turn it into that? I would say maybe that is, Libra, the Facebook currency.
Mm-hmm.
It would not surprise me if they want to have a spigot that they can turn on and turn off very easily for
Mm-hmm.
folks. But I would also argue that most people using fiat currencies are using digital
Yeah.
banking
Yeah.
anyway, unless you're really thinking about, gold and silver and those kinds of things. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how tradable and cash-inable those will be if we have an apocalypse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm always
Well,
a little skeptical of that.
yeah, and I don't know. Here's another controversial topic. I don't know, or where you sit on all this, but this concept of being able to regulate people's engagement in society is exactly what the Bible describes in the end times. If they do not want you engaging in commerce, it's very simple. They turn you off. You simply reject. Which is why I think it's scary that China's going with these facial scans. Well, how do you identify twins? You know what? We got to fix this. Let's just put a little mark up here, or maybe you can put a little thing there on your hand and you can, that's your way to scan in. Now we're getting to the point where you cannot engage in our society unless you have our marks and,
Right.
and play by our rules, and we can turn it off. And so we are starting to get, dare I say it, a little biblical in where we're going, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think regardless of where you are religiously, on this stuff, I do think it shows that even ancient cultures were really cognizant of population control through these types of methods, right?
mhm, yeah,
Identifying people, surveilling people, et cetera, et cetera. There's a really strong element of control in all this. It goes back to really
mhm,
quote unquote primitive methods, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
So I love this comment from Keegan because it speaks so much to this. So many people complaining about privacy loss, big tech, and smartphone addiction, yet they're too lazy to change the way they do things. And what resonates with me the most about that comment is that that is very true. The companies will only have as much information about you as you willingly give them.
Right.
So,
Well, we are
to a
also
degree.
unwilling participants in
Yes.
in
Yes.
social
To a
surveillance,
degree.
right?
To a degree.
So even if you're not in Facebook, you're in Facebook, right?
Hmm.
And we do know, for example, that there's a lot more automatic facial scanning going on than
Hmm.
these companies have let on previously.
Correct.
So if somebody ever took a picture of you and it ends up on the internet, it's very likely Google or Facebook or both have, a copy of your face in some algorithmic
Hmm.
form.
Yeah.
So you're right, but I don't buy the whole vote with your wallets thing completely. I think we need to get a little beyond that. It's becoming impossible to be an empowered individual or even an autonomous individual that's able to go out there and do something in the world without using some
Hmm.
basket of these surveillance technologies. You
Correct.
may not realize that's what you're
Mhm.
doing,
So,
but
and
yeah,
and
anyway.
and this is true because like we're streaming this on YouTube right now. We're still using Google Hangouts right now. But the thing is that, and this is sometimes you get criticized for doing this, but it's like there's a point in time when you have to. The question is, are you going into it with your mind, realizing the danger and recognize what you do, or are you just carte blanche diving in without any logical thought or concern? And I think that's the difference. Like, I don't have any personal photos on Google. I don't have any personal stuff on Google. They don't have any, like, I mean, they'll have emails when I've responded or replied to somebody, but there's no core of my life that is on any of these big servers. And that's the
Right,
difference.
right. But how
Yeah.
long do we have those choices, right? Even now, like you said, there
Hmm.
are alternative streaming things you can be, et cetera, but you're not doing that because either the functionality doesn't work or there's some other
Hmm.
janky problem with it. But at least those other choices and alternatives are there, even if
Hmm.
you may have to do a minor research project to
Hmm.
use them. But the thing that we can't control, which is increasingly becoming more of an issue, is real world, so to speak, meat space, right? Technologies that are surveilling you as you just move through the world. Are you going to get a
Yeah.
car where the seats have automated sensors in them that know whether you're sitting in the seat or someone else is driving your car? And
Hmm.
now there's a GPS built into the thing, and it won't even start without this car computer that you can't modify,
Yeah.
right? Either by definition because it's proprietary or because you're mandated not to be able to modify it by some law
Yeah.
or both,
Yeah.
right? Bluetooth sensors, BLE sensors are getting really, really small. There's talk of putting them in basically strips like LED diodes, that small, and then just
Yeah.
putting them in ceilings and everywhere.
Yeah.
So you're
Well,
walking through the world and you have no idea.
well, the one place where this is implemented, and this is something, if you really want to see some of these abuses going on, research what goes on in the retail world, because you
Right.
don't think of it, because you're just going to the grocery store to pick up some basic food, but they are some of the most surveillance things. So, like CVS is pioneering this, where they do have those micro Bluetooth sensors all over, and if you have their app, they're tracking you through their store, and they could give you a pop-up notification when you enter an aisle that has a product for sale they think you want. I mean, it's
So,
that's ridiculous. So, of course, the solution to that is
yeah.
don't carry your smartphone in, and certainly don't have a CVS app on your phone, and you're actually preventing a lot of those issues.
Yeah, some of them though, but yeah, I see you're also a student of reading retail papers to see what's spying on
Yes,
you. Uh,
yes. Of course, the worst
because
store
a
to go
lot of the
into is Walmart. Walmart has been
yeah,
doing, and Lowe's have been doing facial recognition and data storage on everybody who walks in and out of the stores for about 5 years.
yeah, yeah. I will also say though, it is hard sometimes to know what apps are actually participating in these retail schemes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just the CVS app; it's also that they have trackers that are specifically designed to do this type of geofencing in the case of Bluetooth, right? Where they're trying to figure out your path throughout the store and kind of
Mm-hmm.
keep you in an area so they know whether you're buying milk and how much and when, why you're doing it
Yeah.
potentially. Um, but anyway, those trackers, the code for those trackers is increasingly in apps that you wouldn't suspect to be
Mm-hmm.
linked to CVS, right? And
And
CVS may
yeah.
ultimately be getting that data. So you get a weather app, especially, or some of these other weird apps. So it is getting harder, and try explaining this. It
Mm-hmm.
takes a minor research project for an individual. It's gotten a little better as we started even having the conversation. So we need to have conversations like this one, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's still hard. And by the way, if anybody on the stream is interested in trackers or tracker signatures, please ping me. I'll make sure you can reach out to me about that issue. We're always looking for volunteer researchers to basically contribute tracker signatures to our GitHub repo. And then, like I
Mm-hmm.
said, we send those up to Exodus Privacy, which ultimately sends it up to F-Droid, which is great.
Yeah. And these are these all like like HTTP tracker strips and things like that. Um,
Yeah, so what we basically do is we disassemble the code for the Android apps, and then we grep through the source, right? And
mhm.
that's more or less how it works.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're doing, like you said, HTTP stuff. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're storing, caching, and sending through some other encrypted tunnel that they set up. Um, Sometimes they're doing tracking that doesn't require them to use normal internet at all. So we look, for example, at ultrasonic trackers, which are, believe it or not, they tell your app to open up your microphone on your device,
Mm-hmm.
and then your microphone is listening to ultrasonic commands from, let's say, smart speakers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or potentially even a Bluetooth
Mm-hmm.
beacon. Some of the beacons have this
Yeah.
technology in them.
Well,
And that kind of channel doesn't require the internet at all.
yeah.
You can just send information back and forth between the device and the speaker, which also has a
Well,
microphone. Right?
smart TVs do use this implementation, in my understanding. A lot of your smart televisions, they'll interface and be able to communicate with your phone devices, phone apps, to see what you're watching and things like that. Are you getting up and gating, or are you engaged in a commercial? So smart TVs do this as well. So, Raspberry Pi and a dumb TV. There's your new smart TV.
Yeah. Well, but what if they don't have my show, man?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But it gets hard to be in the world. I'll just say this: I'm glad I'm not dating, because that would be ridiculous. Imagine going somewhere and saying, "Well, we can't sit here because the Roku might be listening to us." Like, I can't watch Netflix because the Netflix might be spying on me. That kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
thing.
CVS is single-handedly deforesting the planet with their 12-foot receipts. The one store that can say it has the receipts done right is Walmart. I guarantee it's just a cost-saving thing. Guys, if we don't print out a foot-long receipt every single time someone comes through, we're going to save about $1,000 a day.
Yeah. I can't fathom. CVS knows this is a problem. I don't know why the coupons on the back must be really generating some revenue for them. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, some
Uh,
payment processors like PayPal, Stripe, Mastercard. That's a good thing to talk about because I'm struggling with this with Privacy Safe.
yeah.
Um,
I hate
we're
PayPal.
using Stripe.
I don't have a choice.
I hate
Yeah.
PayPal too. Yeah. And we're using Stripe, and I went through a lot of effort to de-Google and pull things out of the site, and then of course, at the end of the day, if someone buys something from us, and of course, I hope you will, um, somebody's got to use one of these payment processors.
Hmm.
So we do offer an alternative. You can buy via Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, but we use BTC Pay for Bitcoin, which is the technology we're pushing on the device if you want to use it at home when you get one. But anyway, unless somebody's using Bitcoin through BTC Pay, there's going to be some intermediary.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what do you do? So if there is a good use case, even if you're skeptical on cryptocurrency, we need to start replacing payment processors on the internet with
Hmm.
cryptocurrency
Yeah.
processors. I think that's a
So,
no-brainer.
going back to this, do you know of any cryptocurrency processors, extensions already available for Joomla or not?
Yeah, so you can just set up BTC Pay, and actually, I'd be happy to have you talk to the folks who helped me set it up. And because I did kind of muddle through it myself with a local installation, but when it came to
Hmm.
actually opening up the right stuff for the web, etc., I didn't trust
Hmm.
myself enough to do that.
Yeah.
I've been a little too far out of the sysadmin game recently to do that. So I have some trusted folks I can have you
Hmm.
talk to. But yeah, I know WordPress has a plugin that talks to BTC Pay very easily. I don't
Yeah,
know if
the
Joomla
my
does.
my current author website is on WordPress, but because of the insanity that WordPress is doing with Gutenberg and not listening to their core user base, that's actually being converted over to a different platform, which I just need to be able to implement that platform. And there's the store options over there. I want to pull PayPal down as soon as I can. I have to be doing over $60,000 in annual revenue to make it worth buying. Like, there's a local payment processor guy. He's actually really cool that he'll take like 5% of the proceeds that they make from your payment processor and donate that to a local charity of choice. It's an awesome program. But he says, you know what, if you're not doing $60,000 or more in business, it's not worth setting it up yet because you're going to be paying too much for it. And so
Are you
that's the
talking
type of
about
guy I want to work with.
OpenACH?
No, it's a
Are you talking
local
about?
guy here in State College, and I'm not sure exactly what his system is, but he's using, it's a payment processor that he can help us get set up on any platform we're using. So when
Yeah,
I'm
so we
ready
want to
to
hear.
do that, I will let you know,
Yeah,
and I'll probably talk to those guys. I'd like to add cryptocurrency options, but that's kind of more normie type stuff. So I don't imagine
yeah.
cryptocurrency will be
Right.
book good and selling books, to a normie crowd. So I don't know.
You
Um,
never know. Snowden's probably gonna have to sell his book via Bitcoin if
yeah,
things keep going this way. But I do want to
yeah,
mention OpenACH, which I'm gonna dump into your chat. We've
okay.
had some interest in putting this on Privacy Safe, so I don't know if people in the channel think it's a good idea. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But it is possible with something small and decentralized that you control to have your own payment processor set up without any intermediaries. Um, Obviously, we would want to make it as easy to use as possible, but we need
Hmm.
to know that folks are interested in it before we invest time into it. Um,
Yeah, that sounds fascinating for people that are running their own businesses and things, particularly in the crypto sphere.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I am so woefully ignorant on cryptocurrencies, and I shouldn't be. I should not be. But for me, it's like I've not had the opportunity to take the time to learn how to do it, and whether how to store it, how to not lose it, and all this fun stuff. So
right.
maybe we'll have to talk cryptocurrency specifically someday if you want to do that, or if you want to bring somebody else on that can do cryptocurrency better. That would be awesome. I'd love to learn more about it. But
I'm happy
um,
to talk about it, but yeah, it may make sense to have somebody who's an expert in the space. I have somebody in mind that I think I can just
okay,
introduce you to
cool.
as well. Because I do keep up on stuff, but I don't keep up on every trend and every currency.
Hmm.
I only know a handful of currencies
So,
really well.
so how much better do you find Stripe versus PayPal? I was looking into Stripe, and it's like it just didn't seem like they were going to be any better, really.
Well, so if you set it up correctly, and this is assuming you trust enough to put their JavaScript in your site, in your CMS, right? But if you load their JavaScript, it's actually completely not transparent, but opaque, I guess, to the user. The user doesn't know you're using Stripe.
Okay.
So it just looks like a normal transaction, and it's really, really easy. You click the button a few times, and it goes through the shopping cart. What it does is it sends the information to their API using whatever API key they have, and all of it's just done by Stripe, and then they cash it out into your bank account after a few days. So it is very different than the PayPal pop-up window thing. Which I think makes it look a little nicer. But at the same time, I mean, I guess hypothetically it's the same thing, same difference on the back end, right?
Yeah,
So
good.
yeah.
All right, I think we're gonna get close to wrapping up here, but people said, how do they find you on Minds? And let's also go ahead and how do we find you on Mastodon? Because I'm over there as
Sure.
well. I'll have to look for you as well. So how do we find you on Minds first?
So the only Minds account I have right now is privacy safe. I'll probably have a personal one, so I'm going to drop that in. On Mastodon, I'll put the handle in here. I'm on mastodon.social. That's that server. And I'm at Diggity, Diggity. It's a nickname from high school that somehow stuck. So that's my handle there. And then, if people want to find me on Twitter or whatever, I can give that to them as well. Just really quickly, I just want to make sure we're doing justice to all the conversation. I'm very impressed by the amount of chatter that goes on in this stream. This is great. Yeah. It's just everybody's seems pretty common sense on stuff, right?
Okay, so there's your Minds. And Fostodon, I'm on Fostodon. I'm not sure what instance you're on or not on Mastodon, but
I'm on just mastodon.social. And so I popped that in there and
I'm not seeing yours show up. Maybe let me switch mine to live chat. See if you're showing up. Are you showing up or not? I'm not.
So I just have.
I'm not seeing you
right above you where you just put your Minds. That's weird. I can see both, but
yeah,
anyway,
I'm on full live chat, and I'm the owner of the channel, and I cannot see your stuff. I don't know why. Interesting.
Family Guy. Not really.
Well, if one of my mods can actually see his stuff, would you please, I don't know, highlight it for me or something? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. That's exciting. Let me try.
So anyway, backdoor's bad. We're all in agreement on that one. And everybody knows once you have a backdoor, it's a backdoor for everybody's communications, not just the bad guys, right? I am going to paste in. Why don't I paste in that Going Dark debate? That's a great paper released by Berkman Klein Center, and Bruce Schneier is one of the contributors. I believe Jonathan Zittrain is another one. So some really good folks. I should paste that into the channel as well.
See, I'm not even seeing. I pulled up my chat on another computer. I'm not seeing it over there either. I'm not seeing your chat feeds at all. Even switching to live chat.
Well, say I don't know. I can see a freaking on mine, so I don't know. I hope I'm not banned or something. But anyway, it's fine. Just send people out to Privacy Safe, and the social information for Privacy Safe is more or less
What's your YouTube handle?
Oh geez, Privacy Safe AI.
Okay. I guess where are you putting it? Are you putting those in the Google chat, or are you putting those in the YouTube comments?
In the YouTube chat. I'm putting it in the YouTube comments. Is that not where I should be putting them?
Yeah, that's exactly where you should be putting them. I'm just not seeing them.
Okay, strange.
Okay, well,
all right,
fun. I'll have to try and figure out the end of that. And are they on there at Privacy Safe? Is that the username that's showing up?
Yeah, it should be Privacy Safe. Yeah, exactly.
Keegan, are you seeing them? Keegan's one of my mods. Let's see. I don't see anything Keegan could probably do.
I'm going to refresh the page. That's very strange. I'm logged in and I can see them, and I could screen cap them to prove it, but what's the point?
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
It's weird.
um,
I'll dig through my stuff and see if I can find. Let's see. Where's that at? There's whitelists and there's blacklists in here somewhere. I just can't remember exactly where they are. It's not
okay, well, so
exactly.
anyway, folks, yeah, Diggity on Mastodon.social. You can find me under Yale Privacy Lab on there as well. That's just Privacy Lab, or privacysafe.ai. We've got all our social information up there. Feel free to reach out. Uh, and yeah,
Is it, is it privacy safe?
yep. .ai. Or under what? Mastodon?
What's the What's the YouTube the YouTube account name?
The YouTube account name, it's Privacy Safe AI, and it's social at privacysafe.net.
Privacy
Actually,
safe
now we're troubleshooting in front of the
AI.
stream. Great.
I am literally typing in privacy safe AI and there's no channel matches found. Let me
I hope
try
they
it
didn't
here.
just like ban my channel or something.
Privacy
Um,
safe AI.
we've been having this problem with Facebook where they keep killing our channel, and we're just trying to reach people and tell them about the product.
Is it
Yeah,
PRIVACYSAFEAI?
FE. That's it. Yeah, yep. Um, well, let me just. Why don't you just search
Filter.
YouTube for Privacy Safe? You'll find.
Privacy
You
safe
should
AI.
find it.
Okay, privacy. Okay, so I found it
Yeah.
by specifically doing that. All right. Let
Weird,
me
right?
look at. Okay. Safe AI. Let me try this. Yeah, I cannot add you as a mod. I can't, like, I can find the
Okay.
specific channel name, but I can't add. That's weird.
Well, next time we'll just use my personal account, maybe because it's tied to a business. I don't see why that would make any sense,
I
but
don't know. Like, I can't even find it. It's weird. It might also be because there's only like 10 subscribers on it right now. So maybe let's bump that up to
yeah.
100 and then you can claim the slash privacy safe AI. So if you guys want to go do that, go for it. Anyway.
Great.
All right. Any final words here?
Yeah, I just to sort of bring things through 360 here. The more that we lock our communications up in these big providers, and this is a soft sell to your audience, but it just still needs to be said. The more that we sort of go down that slippery slope of using a WhatsApp or using a Facebook, the more that we're going to be vulnerable to this kind of stuff, where some big blanket law can just be created that puts either inserts the back door, requires full disclosure. To government and potentially corporations as well.
Yeah.
So we got to
So
just get out of these
yeah,
ecosystems,
just
and it's a
better
pain.
your data not be there, even if it means a little bit of
Right.
inconvenience in your life.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Cool.
Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up right here. And thanks for coming along. And we will talk about when we'll have you on again sometime soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom.
Yep. I got to give it 30 seconds so we don't cut the end out.